Welcome to the Business Vitality Podcast. My name is Catherine Cantey. I am the host and an executive coach. I work with teams, individuals, and leaders to help create a measured leadership change. We do that using practical applications, and our clients are creating 100% measured results as seen by those around them. Not necessarily what I think or what they think, but what the other people are seeing. And they are being recognized for the hard work that they're doing. If you're interested in learning more about some of the work that we're doing, you can learn more at catherinecantey.com. I would love for you to subscribe to this show, to Business Vitality. This is my way to continue to pay it forward and share business best practices. Stay tuned and listen to the interview. Thanks for being here.
Samantha Hartley, you are the Business Growth Advisor found on the web at samanthahartley.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about your business. I would love to learn more.
I work with women consultants who are usually on the revenue roller coaster. That means some months are good and some months are not that good. And those, whether they're making $150,000 a year or $750,000 a year, when they come to me, those peaks and valleys are stressful to them. And a lot of them find that they want to grow their business, but they're already working as many hours as they possibly can, and so they don't realize like what's possible. Like, how do I even grow? Because we all know that you can work harder and grow, but if you're already maxed out, then what happens? So I help them to maximize what they're doing, multiply their revenues without exhaustion, is the way that I say it, by working with perfect clients on transformational engagements, which means that they work with their clients for more than a year for at least $100,000 a piece. And that's a pretty new way of thinking for most of them.
So when you have a new client that comes to you, do you continue to see maybe some themes that continue to bubble up that you're just kind of like, oh man, every single time this is what we're looking at?
It's such a good question. Absolutely. Every single time. I didn't know that was possible. So they're charging what they think is the most that they possibly could charge. And that's never going to be the case. I've never met anybody who I was like, oh, well, I mean, we can't raise your prices, but we can do other stuff. So there's always room to bring more value and be compensated more fairly for the value they are bringing. So that's area one. The second one is they're almost always working too hard, giving too much to the clients, rather than making delivery less heavy for them and putting more of that work on the clients, which is actually a good thing because then the clients get better results. So that's usually area number two. And I think just being so hard on themselves, like that exhaustion, a lot of it is like, I know I could be doing better, but I don't know what to do. And so the self-care usually falls by the wayside. And that feels like a luxury when actually the self-care is, when we plug into that, that's when you open up the ideas that help in those other two areas.
I have found that for myself, when I do take the time to totally unplug, leave the phone at the house, go run the errands, or just go do something for me, what I have found is the answer pops up right when I'm standing in the grocery store line or I'm getting a massage or something's happening. I'm like, this is not related to whatever that work opportunity was, but it's clear as day and it's right there in front of me.
It's so often the case where when you let your mind like relax, that those answers can bubble up, and it's the working in the taking the shower effect, or walking the dogs, or out on the trails, or in the grocery store. Those challenges actually are able to be solved by the part of our brain, which isn't the think part, but is actually tied into intuition, and intuition, I think, is tied into everything else. All of the big answers come that way.
I feel like we've kind of let go of the intuition in the gut, and we're attacked by social media, and we're attacked by, the dinging on the bell, kind of like Pavlov's dog. Do you have any thoughts around that?
I do. I think intuition is where it's at. And I think that's true for all of society. But I think we as women can start popularizing that if we need to. I find intuition is never wrong. if you really know how to listen to it. Like 100% of the time, we have a hit in the first few seconds about, for example, if I should work with this client or not. And then we spend the rest of the 30 or minute discovery call or 6-week discovery process thinking, well, I don't know if I should or shouldn't, but you heard the right answer in the first 3 seconds. Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Blink about that we have an immediate impulse, and that one is right. And whether we talk ourselves into or out of what we heard originally is usually where the information is. So one of the things that I ask my clients to maintain is some sort of a spiritual practice. And what I will tell them is, it doesn't matter to me what that is, as long as you do have that. So for some people, that is an actual practiced religion. So it's prayer, it's going to, it's services, it's being part of that community. But I want to find a place that they can get quiet and hear that voice. For other clients, it's, as I talked about earlier, like out on the trails or walking the dog. I had a client who said his dog time was God time. So whatever that happens to be, Sarah Blakely talks about that she gets in the car and she just drives, and that's where her ideas come to her, that driving process. She said she only lives a few minutes from her workplace, but she takes the long way to get to work. That's Sarah Blakely, the billionaire who created Spanx, in case everyone doesn't know. But that, I think that tapping into intuition is, and honing that as an instrument, because it can get stronger and stronger and stronger. You'll find that'll serve you so well. And the answers might not be, when you're talking about like getting pushback about that, other people can't always see how you came to those decisions. And so they might question them or push back on them. But the outcome of that is going to be, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more aligned with what you're doing. You're going to avoid a bunch of terrible situations. You're going to opt into more positive situations that everybody wasn't clear on originally, but you're going to know, yeah, I felt that intuitively, that this was the right thing to do. And now here we are, all benefiting from that.
I'm taking notes while we're talking, and it makes me think about, if we communicate, we explain the why. That's what it sounds like you're talking about. Maybe you've got an example of somebody that listened to the gut, the intuition, and was able to explain why. Do you have maybe somebody that comes to mind?
Who comes to mind? I mean, I have had, I definitely have had clients who say, I don't think this is the right thing. This client has given us this situation, but it sure is a lot of money. And that's when I'll have to say, well, what do you think about that? What's really happening but for you physically when you're thinking about doing that work. I was just hearing somebody talk this morning on a different podcast about her intuition about firing someone, and she heard the voice inside of her, and for months and months and months she resisted it until one day she came in and just spontaneously fired them. It turned out they were doing very nefarious things. And what I would say in my personal situation, I also have had those feelings of like, and about a specific person. It reminded me of my firing situation. And I just had this feeling of like, oh, this is not good. And I had that feeling long before the evidence to do it started piling up. So I just had a feeling of like, I don't think this is working out anymore. But like a lot of us, I talked myself out of it, and I was like, well, but I don't want to have to replace her, and I don't want to do this kind of a thing. And then the performance started to go worse. And then everybody on the team noticed. And then, so it was, had I just listened in the very beginning, then it would have made a big difference. And really, I think intuitive pricing, that's another place that we'll look at this. So I'll have a client say, I don't know how much I should charge for this. And that's when I've had a specific client who did this. What do you feel in your gut is the right number for this? So this works when I feel like they are honestly attuned to what that intuitive price is. And I've had to work with a number of people to say, okay, so your gut is too low by half. So I'm going to train your gut to give me a number which is more aligned with your value. So that's when we kind of transition into intuitive number into kind of like real world application.
Are you pulling this from just market research that's out there where they're located, or how are you knowing that they need to double?
I work with so many consultants, so for so many years, and so I know what other people can charge for what they're doing, and one of the exercises that I have my clients do is called the $1 Million Dress. And in it, we take them kind of through a visualization of like, you go into this boutique and they're bringing you different dresses, and you kind of, they bring you one and you put that one on, and like, this is the one. And this dress it costs $1 million. So when you're sitting in your $1 Million Dress, like, how do things appear around you? And I have men who do this, and their version of it is they're in this bespoke tailoring shop in London, where they're being fitted into suits. So, and I have clients who are like, I'd never wear a dress. I'm like, put on your $1 Million experience, whatever that thing is. But when you sit in that $1 Million dress and you look around, you're like, well, I don't do those tasks anymore, and I don't work with those clients anymore. And if I'm going to do that work, the value of this work for that kind of a client is going to be this. So it's kind of a consciousness raising exercise. And that's part one of the work that I do with my clients. You just have to raise your consciousness of like, oh, I'm different now. And this is a big reason why my clients come to me. In your market, if you're working with clients who are like, I wouldn't pay that much money for that, then you're priced out at that part of your market. And it's time to look for clients who are more on your level. So the experiences that I'm talking about, the specific individuals who I have had to say, it's kind of like your picker in dating. This is like your pricer in your consulting business is like really, really out of date and out of tune with the work that you're doing. A lot of times this will be people who have come from maybe academia or the nonprofit world. Like, they don't necessarily have as much of a business background, but plenty of my clients have a business background, will do this too. And they'll be like, well, I don't know. It's, for example, $25,000. And I'll be like, I think it's more like a $50,000. And so what happens with that, Catherine, is it's just like the $1 Million Dress exercise. If I'm like, you don't have to charge $50,000, but I want you to, for a day, walk around as if the price of this is $50,000. And when they walk around in it, they start to get used to it. Like, that feels pretty good. Well, I am doing kind of a lot of work. Well, there is that one thing, and I know so-and-so does this work, but it's like $300,000. So I'm definitely, and they start to talk themselves into that higher price. So whether when they go back to it, it's only $30,000, it's still more. And if for some reason they do it for $25,000 and the person says yes, then they're mad. And they're like, I knew it. And that mad information tells you like, oh, that was too low. So it's, pricing is an art and a science. There is this is what the market will bear. And then there is this is intuitively the number that I get for this. And then there is, well, I'm going to run my costs and what I have to pay my people and how much I really want to clear for myself. And then there is like that we end up with a number. So there's, as I say, art and science to it. There's like 7 different factors that we look at. In the end, though, what I'm looking for is my client to say, I want to charge so much that I feel like, oh, wow, I'm going to really have to step up my game to deliver this kind of value, because then you're bringing the best out of yourself. And then I'm going to charge so that my client goes, oh, wow, this is a lot of money, man. We have to really take this seriously. We definitely have to do the work. I always use the analogy of I've been a member of a $10 gym, and I've been a $10 a month gym and a $150 a month gym. And which one do you think I went to more often?
Yeah, definitely the 150.
Mm-hmm.
Always. So a lot of mindset work is in here. How do you, once you kind of get them over the hump, what are maybe some of the maintenance things you're doing for the mindset?
Continuing to keep an eye on what that value exchange. Am I trying to do too much stuff to justify this price? Can I do less and less and be more effective? To me, this is the wonderful intellectual exercise that we as consultants and coaches get to do, is to say, how can I get an even better result? And to solve that problem, goes back to your brilliant ideas in the grocery store thing. I don't necessarily get my answer to that question by sitting at my desk and going, think. When I am, so one of the maintenance mindset things that I'm doing is asking my clients to work fewer hours so that on client work, on anything that's client related, on, quote unquote, billable hours, I want them to have time in their schedule for thinking, which, like, we think. I just want them to have an hour when they just sit and they think, not an hour ever, but like an hour a week when they're thinking, how can I get better results for this client? What could I do so that result would really stick, would really last? So I have a number of clients who work in people things. So leadership development, team, culture, all those kind of people related things. And people related problems are messy and sticky, and like it takes a long time for those to last. So I can come in and do a workshop and everybody's like, yay, we all get along, and then we go back to our work and that guy's like a jerk again. So how am I going to help them to get a more transformational result that actually lasts? That's the thing I want them to be thinking about, and that's the kind of maintenance that we're doing with my clients who've been with me 5, 6, 7 to 10 years. We are still working together. So what are we working on? How do I become an ever better version of myself as a consultant?
I think that's a great challenge for a lot of people in business is how do we take it to the next level? How do we continue to create the transformation? And how do we create a transformation that lasts?
Yes.
I love that you said that because so few of us can deliver the transformation. We have to be present to be able to receive it, but then we have to be consistent in order to keep playing it out and out. And then that's where that creativity comes, because you work with a lot of different businesses. What works for one business or even one person isn't going to work for somebody else. Is there, I know that the thinking time creates some of this creativity that's out there. Are there any other things that that spurred, kind of helped spur some of that activity?
Yeah, I think being in community also really helps because for very often self-employed people are the only self-employed person they know. And so, the pandemic helped with this, but for a lot of us who work from home and have always, or for a long time, many years worked from home, when you're like a consultant who you work from home, and even if you like travel to client sites, sometimes your neighbors are like, what do you do? Like, you don't seem to be going to an office or doing whatever. And so if the other thing is like when I have a client who will close a $300,000 engagement and they want to celebrate with someone. Holy cow, I just closed a $300,000 engagement. Yay, this was amazing. I'm so proud of myself. Who can they say that to? Who can they take that to and celebrate with? Sometimes that's going to be more than somebody else's salary for the entire year. And this is one of their clients. So I think when you come together in community with other consultants, which is what I have a lot of my clients do, meet others who are doing what you're doing. And then you're like, I mean, she's great. She's smart, but she's not that much smarter than I am. Like, how come I'm not earning 3 times what I could be like she is? So I like to have positive comparison. I know they say comparison is the thief of joy, but I'm like, can we have benchmarks that make it things seem possible to ourselves of like, I think I could be doing that. And, oh, wow, they're doing, oh, cool. That's a great idea. And so I think that community piece really helps us to see what's possible, to feel inspired by others. And then, it's just, my, all of my branding is about being more profitable and more joyful. And I think it's lonely to be a lone wolf, and it's joyful to be in community. It's joyful to collaborate. It's joyful to speak with you today, to share audiences. It's joyful to have a team who supports my work. I just feel like that the people piece of it can be the place where we get a lot of, the good stuff of being in business.
It does help. It does help. So to do this, to create this impact that continues to transform time and time again, I am going to speculate we can't do everything by ourselves. Delegation is key. Talk about delegation and how that plays into everything.
A lot of my clients, when they come to me, they'll have like one VA, which is great because I have worked with plenty of people who are doing everything themselves, including like, you want me to go make that change? They'll go do that on their website right now. And I'm like, why are you doing that? So if we go back to the idea I was talking about with having a spiritual practice, because what I want you to do is be a more calm and centered and better version of yourself. I also want them to have a support system around them, which will help them to be a more calm and centered and, together, balanced, decisive version of themselves. And that usually means the term that I will use, or the expression I'll use, came from one of our spiritual directors. And he said, only do what only you can do. So when we start our businesses, we do all of the jobs. And then very quickly, we'll get rid of the most heinous of the jobs and also the ones that we're completely unqualified for. And that's going to vary from person to person. So if you're like, I'm cool with bookkeeping, it's no big deal, then maybe you'll keep that and get rid of the tech, website stuff first, or the email marketing stuff first. But I need my clients to begin to get rid of those jobs. And the interesting thing about, because I have worked with plenty of men, and when I work with women, like they'll hold on to those jobs longer because women are so adaptable, and like they're just like, I can probably do it. I can do everything myself. And I'm old enough to have worked for men who didn't type back in the day. And so men are like, if it's hard, very often they'll be like, I'm not doing that. I'm getting rid of that. So they'll have a whole team of virtual assistants where I'll have a client who'll be like, no, I do almost everything. My VA does these things. So I ask them to begin to staff up and get rid of jobs in their business, because I'm on their team when they bring me in. So there's good. A coach is a good one. And now who else can help you implement? And I started doing a lot of done for you work for my clients because they wouldn't let go of it and they wouldn't trust anyone. And so I was like, well, I have an amazing team, so let us take over. And we would do a lot of those things. So I have a few clients that I do that for, just because they were like, I can trust me and you and no one else. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to try to teach you. Now, some of those clients who I have now have full-time employee assistants, or they have a team, their own team, who does like mini me kinds of things, who subcontractors who come in with them on engagements or other things like that. So I like to see women really expand in both trust and the ability to let go of things, including things that they could do themselves. One of my clients, Patty Lawrence, is a fractional CFO, and she has talked on my podcast about the ego death that happened when she hired her first CFO. She hired another person in her business to do the stuff that she does. And there's this moment where you're like, but this is only do what only you can do, but I can do this. And at that point, what the truth becomes, actually, you're the vision holder and you are marketing this business. And the thing that only you can do, other people can be CFOs, but only you can set the vision for this business. Only you can collect a team and inspire us to follow that vision. Only you can, she's an amazing networker, can connect with other organizations and other people that we can help. Like only she can do those things. And really other people can be a CFO and those other jobs on her team. So that's really the kind of the journey from I only can trust myself and do everything myself to, hey, now I have a whole team. There's one other thing though that I want to add that I'll ask a lot of my clients to do is get a housekeeper if you don't have one. Mm-hmm. Hire people to cook for you. It's less expensive than you think, and it's healthier for you and your family, and you can cook on the weekends. Hire help for whatever home tasks deplete your energy. I only want people to be doing things that are giving them energy to the extent that that's possible. So if you're like, well, cooking is time with my family and it gives me joy, then keep that job. But just keep in mind, if all of these things can be hired out, and if it's preventing you from ascending to your $1 million or $2 million consulting business, then, or coaching business, or whatever kind of business, then let go of those jobs. I don't care what else they're doing in the neighborhood and who else has this kind of help that but if it's going to make you a better version of yourself as a business person and as a family member, and just as a human being, then let go of those jobs.
I can't agree with you more. I also know that it helps empower other people who want to be able to provide for themselves, and they're good at this, and that's where they are. And so by empowering them, that's great. And over the years and the older I get, just because I know how to do things doesn't mean I need to do the things. And so now it's just kind of like, all right, I don't want to do that anymore. Just because I do know how to do it, I'm just not going to do it. So
Exactly.
we're going to have to find somebody else to do it. So
Right.
I love that. You've talked about something, joy and genius zone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind explaining what that is?
Totally. This is one of my big things is joy. Everybody has heard of the genius zone because of Dan Sullivan, and a lot of people talk about the genius zone, and I'm like, that's great. But probably, Catherine, you have like stuff that you are like amazing at doing, but it steals your energy. Like every minute you're doing it, it is draining you. So it feels like, but I should do the thing that I'm so great at. not if it's costly. So for example, I'm a very strong writer, and for years I would write for our clients too. And I realized it depletes me. I can feel the battery on my um, personal clock or timer just going down as I'm doing those tasks. So a genius zone is the thing that you're best at in all the land. Joy zone is the thing that gives you energy. And in your work and in your life, I actually think, do the things that are both your genius zone and your joy zone. So I used to compete in agility with my dog, and I was pretty terrible at it, but we loved it. I could have done it for the rest of my life, just day in and day out. It was so fun. Gave me tons and tons of energy to be with her and to be out there running on these obstacles. I shouldn't do that for a living because I wasn't that good at it. However, I shouldn't write for my clients. So I write for myself, but I have other genius people who write for our clients. They're amazing at it, and it gives them energy. So that's the diagnostic that you want to ask yourself is, this is a thing that I'm doing. This goes for clients too. But this client needs exactly what we're doing. Does it give you energy to work with them? No, it actually, every meeting I have with them, I dread when I see it on my calendar, and it drains me by the end of it. You can even like them a lot, and it can still be draining. And so if you have to kind of limit your time doing something, then it's not a joy zone for you. So I actually hire my team this way as well. I don't want anyone on my team to do anything that is depleting for them. So when I talk to them about what they're doing, whether it's graphic design or whether it's setting up some tech thing for the website, I'll say, do you love doing this? Is something you want to do? Definitely. And so we all kind of speak that language internally, and definitely with my clients, they learn to let go of those things that cost them energy.
I love that. What were some things that you wish you knew before you got into helping all these businesses?
So many things. For my what was it, 200th episode, I did like 25 things I wish I knew when I got started. There's a million of them. So many of the things I talk about. I mean, I wish I had known originally that it's not it is not about how much you work and how hard you work. There is, and this is I'm about to say the thing that was hardest for me. There's no relationship between how hard you work and how much money you earn. And if you'd told me that in the beginning, I would have just said, well, you're crazy, and so I can't hear anything else you say. There's just no relationship. How much you earn is about your clarity of purpose and how smart you're working. And the more hours you put in is usually a diminishing return. So that was very frustrating to me because I worked long and hard. The nicer you are to yourself and the better care you take care of yourself, the better results you're going to get. I always say it's kind of like the talent and the business. If she ain't happy, nobody's happy. You have to think of yourself as like Beyonce, and like what's in her contract. Like there better be fresh flowers in her room, and there better be a this. Like, what are your conditions for getting the best results from yourself? And I just had this kind of military attitude towards myself where I was like, okay, I'm gonna get in work. I'm gonna get up early. I had back then I had an overseas team. I was like, all right, they're working when it's 11 o'clock my time. I'm gonna be working at 11 o'clock my time. And then part of my team is in at 8:30. I'm gonna be in at 8:30. That just, the years that I worked the hardest, I was earning so much less than I am now. And I work probably a 25-hour work week, and there's a lot of thinking time built into it. So you can hear that so much of what I'm teaching my clients is stuff that I had to learn the hard way, usually over the years. And I'm like, let's just jump to the end with you. You don't need to learn any of this stuff. And so I'm usually pretty persuasive when I make those arguments to them.
How do you recharge?
So one of the big things that I will do is hermit time. So I talk to my clients about this as well, because a lot of them will have hermit archetype, which means there's a part of us that reconnects and recharges in silence and in alone time. Doing our own thing alone. Now, what's kind of interesting is the way that I can hermit. So sometimes that's like me on a couch under a blanket, 2 dogs and a cat. Sometimes that's out on a trail, walking, just exploring some new place in nature. And sometimes it can be travel alone. It's really interesting how travel, I have another friend who's will travel a lot for work, and we're by ourselves. And that solo travel time can also be hermit time, because you're just really out there on your own, doing your own thing. So those are all really good ways for me to recharge.
I love that. Tell me a little bit, you've got some resources that might be available for those that are listening?
Yeah, a lot of people will hear me and think, well, I love this six-figure engagements, and I love this $100,000 engagement idea, but I don't know how to get started with that. Or maybe they're doing $100,000 engagements, but they feel like working a little too hard, and this whole revenue roller coaster thing is definitely up. Then the free resource I have is it's called The Definitive Guide to Winning Six-Figure Clients. And it's there's like a PDF, so there's instructions, and then also some worksheets and exercises and videos. So it's a very complete kind of mini training on how to transition from revenue roller coaster to having like a peaceful business. And that's at sixfigureclients.com. So it's the numeral 6 and then figureclients.com.
Fantastic. If somebody wants to reach out to you, Samantha, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, samanthahartley.com.
Fantastic. Samantha Hartley, you are the Business Growth Advisor, found on the web at samanthahartley.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been fabulous to talk to you, Catherine.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you like it, please subscribe, share this episode or this show with other people around you. The greatest form of a compliment is a referral. I really appreciate them. And if you think that you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing, I encourage you to reach out to CatherineCantey.com. You can schedule a call or just continue to read articles and information that we post out there. Thank you so much for being here.